And so another big area of controversy and one of the biggest topics of conversation this past year related to the orphan drug industry has been the pricing of pharmaceuticals. So how vulnerable do you think that the rare disease business model is to legislative efforts and governmental pressure to control costs of prescription drugs?
Yeah. Well, look, I think in every industry, you're going to see examples of egregious behavior where people will try to game, right, the system, right? And we've seen some of those abuses around pricing, okay, in the industry. So that's invited a lot more critique and criticism, and a lot of it is fair. However, what is lost in that are the many, many companies, okay, that don't have a drug approved. They're not into pricing, right? They're into research and development innovation. And that's largely the biotech industry. 95+% of the biotech companies don't have a drug approved, are not profitable, okay? And I think that is where the investors are saying, we want to take the risk of putting large amounts of capital to move these technologies to treat these many diseases, many of which are in the orphan drug rare disease space. And there has to be an expected return if it works. Because otherwise you would see that investment dry up overnight. Because the whole reason that they bet on a technology is that it's going to be transformational, that it could be curative for some diseases, and that the market will accept and reimburse at a reasonable price, but reasonable price for rare diseases where there may only be a few hundred, few thousand patients is very different than a cardiovascular drug that gets used in tens of millions of patients, right? So I think that it will come under scrutiny, but I think it would be appropriate to allow the pricing structure the way it currently exists, but apply more discernment between outcomes. Again, what is the value that you're bringing to that disease? Okay, if you have a gene therapy and one infusion or injection cures a devastating disease, okay, well, that's pretty impactful. And so we don't want to get caught up in the price of that one infusion, right? We saw this with Gilead and hepatitis C as an example, but that's a more broad-based, several million patients out there have hepatitis C. I think when you start to see aggressive pricing and there's only a few hundred or a few thousand patients, I think it does require a different pricing model, but I think there's no getting around it. Every product approval will be scrutinized. We're seeing that with Sarepta's DMD drug. We're seeing that with Biogen's SMA drug, just to give some recent examples. And I think payers are going to say, well, wait a minute, FDA may approve the drug, but we want to understand more the value that it's bringing to the patient and to justify that before we reimburse. And so I think you'll see more of that.
If you want to hear more from Chris and other thought leaders in the orphan drug industry, make sure to join us on April 20th and 21st in Washington, D.C. at the World Orphan Drug Congress USA 2017. Thank you.